everybody, and welcome to our Dominaria Complete Set Review. I'm Evan Irwin.
I'm Ruben Bressler.
And I'm Aaron Campbell.
All day, we are the Magic Mics, and we want to talk about every single card in the new set as powered by our Kickstarter. Thanks to all the fans who helped make this happen. We're going to talk about all the red cards right now.
I'm going to sit this one out. So.
Oh, okay, well, Aaron's good.
I'm good.
It's cool. She's got stuff to do. She's got email to look at.
It's okay.
You know, messages to respond to. It's fine.
Yeah.
Bloodstone Goblin kicks us off here. It's a red and generic mana for a 2/2 common Goblin Warrior. Whenever you cast a spell, if that spell was kicked, Bloodstone Goblin gets +1/+1 and gains menace until end of turn. Why?
It's got a lot of text on it that's not going to do much.
For a red creature, yeah.
Whenever you cast a spell, if that spell was kicked, you know, you get a lollipop and get your coupon on the way out.
It's a 2/2 for 2.
It's a bear.
I can't imagine a situation where that line of text is going to be relevant more than once in any game of Limited. And even, I don't think it's ever going to be relevant. The only situation that I can even think of where you're reliably going to be kicking a spell is the 2-mana black removal spell that kicks to give a creature -5/-5. Which, you know, remove a blocker, give this menace, you're probably getting through for the extra 3 damage, but it's not even worth building, you know, a situation where that becomes relevant. This is going to be an incidental thing that happens. It's a 2/2 for 2. Just play it as a 2/2 for 2.
And that's fine. It doesn't need to do anything else.
No, of course not.
It's just a bear. And bears are good.
Absolutely. I love me a bear.
There you go. Champion of the Flame is next. It's a red and generic mana for a 1/1 uncommon human warrior that has trample and gets +2/+2 for each aura and equipment attached to it.
Wow.
This card doesn't need much to get ridiculous.
Yeah. This is sort of gets the core Spirit Dancer bonus without drawing the card, obviously.
Right.
We've seen other cards that have bonuses for being equipped. This is by far the most pushed one, getting +2/+2 on a 2-mana 1/1 with a keyword that is relevant already for being able to get higher power. Certainly Champion of the Flame. You know, we talked about Dub already.
I was going to dubs. I was waiting on the dubs.
We talked about Short Sword, and there's the Lance. There's plenty of cheap, efficient ways to make Champion of the Flame a real powerhouse very quickly.
This feels like a departure for red. You know, when you think of auras or you think of Bogles, you tend to think of the Bant colors, like white mostly, and then blue and green. But correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you don't see that much from red.
Not as
Sometimes
much,
you see like
no.
a Madcap skills, but I feel like this is one of the rare occasions where red kind of wants to use auras. Red wants you to suit up something.
Sure.
I think that's neat.
There are a couple of cards in red that have done things when they're equipped specifically in the past. There was a Goblin and Zendikar
But
block.
auras?
I'm pretty sure that there was a Goblin and Zendikar block that got some sort. I think it gained trample when it was equipped, and it was like a 1/1 for 1. Every once in a while, you'll see something that when it, you know, obviously the heroic decks, obviously whenever an aura targeted them, that was good, and you had things like the Crowan Satyr or you know stuff like
Right.
that.
I don't
Satyr
think those were red
Crusader,
either.
that's what it was.
I don't think.
There was a couple of them that were red. Certainly a Crowan Crusader and I think it was Satyr Hoplite were the two that had heroic that were played in those 13-land Tom Ross style aggro decks, but you certainly don't see it as often. And Champion of the Flame, I think, is definitely going to push you in that direction. This could theoretically be a centerpiece of a deck in Standard. I don't think it's going to happen, but it is a really pushed effect.
Those are some serious stats.
Yeah.
For each, first of all, is a thing. Secondly, any aura, any equipment, this thing automatically becomes a 3/3, a base 3/3 that you're going to, whatever the bonus is you get is on top of that 3/3. So this is a 2-mana 3/3 trampler at that point with whatever bonus you just gave it.
Yeah.
Like, it gets real scary real fast. Even just a dub, the dub is going to be a 5/5 trampler. What, first strike?
Yep.
Oh my God. Like, this
a
card
problem.
doesn't need much.
No.
And as such, I think it's very, very good and limited. It needs very few things in order to make this thing scary and do serious damage to your opponent. Even if they you're like, oh, you know, you don't have any equipment or auras. Like, you top deck an equipment or aura, this guy is automatically insane.
Now, it is a build around me. You are going to need to get pieces to make this work. And in that way, it sort of reminds me of Burning Vengeance. Very different card, obviously, but you needed to draft, you needed to build your deck in a very specific way in order for that to be good. This is very similar to that.
Right. I don't think it's quite to that level. What I would say is that you want to err on the side of, if, you know, do I have the choice of getting this thing or this aura and equipment? Get the aura and equipment. You know what I mean? That's where it kind of drives you. But Champion of the Flame is really terrific. Fervent Strike is a 1-red common instant that says target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike and haste until end of turn. We've seen this before with +1/+0 in first strike or +2/+0 and something else. But this is the sort of the the mixture of First Strike, +1, and haste.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen First Strike and Haste on the same card. Usually they take up, the First Strike granting combat trick is not the same card as the Haste one, and sometimes you want one and sometimes you want the other. So this is actually being able to grant both. Well, not really a split card since you get both effects, but it's really nice to be able to have the mark of Haste on the one half and then the combat ability on the other. So
yeah, this is your good old-fashioned combat trick.
Yeah.
Don't run a ton of them. Make sure you pick them late because they're going to go late. This is not the type of stuff you first pick. Play in your seal if it's your 22nd or 23rd card. You need a little something. If you don't have like a nice removal spell or something, or
it's a
direct damage
good
spell,
combat trick mid-combat or a haste granter pre-combat. I definitely like this card.
Absolutely. So nothing to write home about, but good old-fashioned Magic.
Also, flavor text reference Legends, just so we're
Legends
of
the
Fire Dance.
That's right.
Yeah, we did it.
Fiery Intervention. Intervention.
There we go.
Fiery Intervention is a red and 4 generic mana common sorcery that says choose one. It deals 5 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. The most expensive shatter you've ever paid for.
Yeah. Sorcery speed at 5 mana, destroy when you really absolutely positively have to main deck artifact removal. The 5 damage to kill a creature is what's going to happen about 90% of the time here. But being able to get rid of a key artifact or equipment or legend, vehicle.
I mean, Wizards has done things like, how bad do we have to make destroy target creature before you won't play it? And I don't know if they ever actually got to the point where you won't play it.
So what you're saying is if you catch your friend playing with this in their sealed deck, you're going to want to have an intervention? Like, what are you doing right now?
That's nice.
No, they're playing
No. They're actually, this card is fine in that regard. I appreciate the joke. But that said, with Fire Intervention is a very good card in sealed, not as good in draft just because of the cost. And there is a certain weird feeling you're going to get when you destroy an artifact with it.
Yeah, and I think we touched on this with an earlier card. Cards like this, I think by themselves, like if it was 5 mana and just a 5 damage, meh. If it was 5 damage and the shatter, no. But when we have modes like that, that means it's very rarely going to be a dead card.
Yeah, you want the option to be able to say, well, I'm going to kill this thing or I'm going to kill your best artifact, and I'm okay with either of those options. Fight with fire, because you should fight everything with fire. I mean, this is Jaya Ballard right here on the thing. For a red and 2 generic mana, it is an uncommon sorcery that has kicker of a red and 5 generic mana. So Fight with Fire deals 5 damage to target creature for only 3 mana. See also Fiery Intervention. However, if this spell was kicked, it deals 10 damage, divided as you choose among any number of targets instead, including players and planeswalkers. So if you play 3 mana, it's cool, Fiery Intervention at a discount. Or if you play 8 mana, you get to just wreck everything.
Yep.
Everything.
Yep.
That's a lot of mana.
This is a first pickable card in every single sealed format and every single draft format that there has ever been. Dealing 5 damage for 3 mana is a rate that I'm not sure I remember ever getting that rate.
It's a very good rate.
Lava Axe, wasn't that?
Lava Axe heals it to players.
Okay.
And it was a lot more expensive.
And Brimstone Volley requires the Morbid trigger.
Right.
But you need to figure out how to get that Morbid trigger. This just kills a 5 toughness creature immediately. And oh, by the way, if you pay 9, which you're very rarely going to pay 9, but if you happen to have 9 mana laying around, it's a 4-for-1.
It is 9. I got that incorrect. My apologies.
That's fine. It harkens back to Urza's Rage, which was a rare from Invasion that had a base cost of 3, and then when kicked, cost 11, and would deal 3 damage. And if you paid the kicker, it instead dealt 10, and it couldn't be countered. A card that I played with quite a bit at Standard, because Standard at the time was very slow, and all I would have to do was kick 2 Urza's Rages to kill my opponent who was playing 30 counterspells in their deck, and so I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Wow.
This harkens back to that, as well as having Grandmother Jaya, Mother Ludi in the art. Big shout out to just my hero, 2 of my heroes, Mother Ludi and Jaya Ballard.
There you go.
And yeah, I love everything about this card.
Yeah, this card is a autoplay and limited in every way possible. Easy first pick. Never pass this card if you're in red.
Yep.
So on and so forth. Fire Elemental. 2 red, 3 generic mana, 5/4. Common. Elemental.
Yep.
That's a Magic card.
And the fact that we get Jaya in the flavor text doing what Jaya does best, which is give flavor texts about red cards. The best way to learn from a book on pyromancy is to burn it. Just a great, we've had Fire Elemental around for since Alpha. So I'm definitely glad to see Fire Elemental come back.
It's weird how, like, even from Alpha, 5 mana, 5/4 is okay.
It's just interesting to me. I remember when Fire Elemental first came out, it was the very bosom lady, like seductively coming off of the mountain, and now it's just this amorphous. Maybe there's limbs. It kind
much
of
more
looks like,
elemental-ish.
right? It kind of looks like an amorphous Cheeto. Like it's just kind of random.
Yeah,
So,
An amorphous Cheeto.
yeah.
Right.
It's the hot chip challenge.
Yeah.
art. Yeah.
Wow. There's not much to say about Fire Elemental. Essentially, it's you need something at 5-drop. You don't have a 5-drop. You need one here for you. Yeah. Don't ever pick it early.
Yeah, some of the problems with the red decks, the chiefly red decks, is that they don't have enough mid-range, mid to late game beef.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you got your aggro
Where's the
creatures, but you need to have something to finish stuff off. Fire Elemental does that great.
There's no shame in running it, but there's a little shame in running a lot of them.
Yeah.
So don't go overboard with the Fire Elementals.
Yeah.
Fire Fist Adept is a red and 4 generic mana for a 3/3 uncommon human wizard. And when it enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to target creature and opponent controls, where X is the number of wizards you control. So clearly, there is a blue-red wizard deck. They want you to pair them together. They're going to have awesome enter the battlefield abilities, and this is one of them. There's a reason it's a 5 mana 3/3. Yeah. You had to pay more just to get the 1 damage, quote unquote, when you should be dealing a lot more than 1.
You should be, because usually this effect costs 4 mana, Sand Strangler or Kavu or Flametongue Kavu, being able to have the red creature that when it enters the battlefield, you light something on fire. This is expensive, which leads me to believe that if this is going to be one of the payoff uncommons, then Wizards is a very good archetype to draft, because if this card cost 5, that was a development change, because it does not look like it should cost 5, and yet here we are.
Right. This to me, I was like, oh, I'd expect a 3/4, for example. Sure. Or even a 4/3, for perhaps. But the idea that like, oh wow, I'm only getting a 3/3 out of this, that ability better be nuts. Which it probably is. So it's better in draft than in sealed, because you can craft a wizard deck in draft. Whereas sealed, you're like, man, I hope I got some wizards, because if I don't have wizards,
now,
it's like
don't
weird.
get us wrong. You're still playing this in sealed and being happy probably to like play it post combat and pick off the last toughness off of something. But yeah, it's certainly no murderous red cap or any of those other enter the battlefield shoot something tricks.
I see it. It dies. Go away. The First Eruption. Oh, this card is so cool. It is a red and 2 generic mana for a gold enchantment saga. In Chapter 1, it immediately deals 1 damage to each creature without flying. Chapter 2, it adds 2 red mana. Chapter 3, sacrifice a mountain. If you do, it deals 3 damage to each creature.
You mean red enchantment?
Red enchantment?
Gold.
Did I say gold?
You said gold.
Oh, I meant gold is in red.
Oh, okay.
Right, he said gold. I thought he said it was an enchantment saga that is gold. I think is what he said.
I mean, it's good.
Oh yeah, I mean it's gold and I like it's very, very good. Because this whole card exists for Chapter 2. You're here for Chapter 2. Chapter 1's cute. Chapter 3's whatever. Chapter 2 says you're going from 3 mana to 6 mana. That's important. That's scary with Fall of the Throne.
I find it kind of ironic that it's a red card that does the 1 damage to each with creature without flying, because you're likely to have the little there's the Firebrand, the Bomat Courier, and the Kenrun. It's like that's awkward.
Yeah. It's a little weird, but it tells the story. The First Eruption, the formation of Shiv hatching from the Ruck egg here in the art from Steve Ballard, who, by the way, y'all probably have read his blog posts by this point about making the First Eruption the art, because it looks like it's a tapestry. I thought that he had digitized a painting. No. This was him physically painting a tapestry, which was painstaking and ridiculous. But yeah, you're right. That number 2 ability, Chapter 2 ability, allowing you to jump from land drop 4 up to 6 mana, letting you cast some of the bananas 6 drops that are available to us, such as Fall of the Thran, which you referenced earlier. By the way, we also get to Wrath the Board the turn after. Is pretty nice.
And that's not repeatable, correct? Like you can only sacrifice 1 mountain?
Correct.
Okay, I was just going to say that could be...
You sacrifice the Uno mountain. If you do so, your opponent saw it coming from 8 miles away. Yeah. That's okay, because I got to play Demon Lord Bells and Lock on turn 4 because I played this on turn 3. And yes, my steel pool was nuts. Yeah. In terms of limited viability, I can imagine this is very good.
Yeah. It's a Wrath. It deals damage. Like that Chapter 3 is why you're playing it in limited. Yeah. To be able to deal with all of the bears and Nessian coursers that came down during the first couple of turns. The Chapter 2 ability probably is you're able to take advantage of. Play a Crawl Worm, play whatever bomb you have that costs 5 or 6 to cheat you a turn earlier. But yeah, absolutely. Chapter 3 for limited, Chapter 2 for constructed.
Very nice. All right, so next up we have a special guest for the Flame of Keld. Let's see who it is and what they got to say.
Hello, Magic Mike's Graham here from Loading Ready Run, and today I'd like to tell you a story. The story of the Flame of Keld. I got a chance to play with this at our pre-release last week, and it's fun. It's a pretty sweet little uncommon saga. It's only 2 mana, and the first chapter is, well, you discard your whole hand. So, you're probably not gonna do that on turn 2. I can't fathom any reason someone would want to throw away all their cards on turn 2. But I mean, in Dominaria Limited, you're probably gonna, just be throwing away some inconsequential stuff, some extra lands, or nothing, depending on how quickly you get your stuff out on the field. Chapter 2, you draw 2 cards. So, kind of sort of 3, because you draw for your turn and then you get 2 extra cards. It's a good feeling. It's a surprisingly good feeling just getting to draw some cards. And then you're setting up for the big punch, which is that any red source that you have that deals damage to a creature or an opponent or a planeswalker or whatever does all of that normal damage plus 2 added bonus. And so, you get these extra cards to set stuff up, and your opponent can see it coming. But it's a little like a train bearing down on them. There's not a lot they can really do about it most of the time. So, yeah, I've heard a lot of stories of Dominaria, but the Flame of Keld is probably the one I'm most interested in for Limited.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you very much, Graham, and of course the whole Loading Ready Run team that we got to saw recently at the Rivals of Ixalan pre-release. And
except for you.
But I don't think we got it.
We go back to Ravnica. I got you.
I'm just saying, we didn't get
when dredge cards are relevant.
a special shout out. Like, I feel like maybe he kind of implied someone
He
here
may
got.
have implied that you wanted to discard your hand.
I may have discarded my hand at various points in time, yes.
Yes.
Breakthrough this is not, but I was watching the pre-release, and Graham definitely did have some explosive games with this card where he was able to empty his hand of Goblin War Chiefs and a bunch of other, random miscellaneous red garbage. Play this to had no cards in hand. This was the last card in hand, so chapter 1 didn't hamper him. Then drew 3 cards, played 3 more creatures or 2 more creatures, and then the next turn, attack with Siege Gang Commander and all those tokens, which are also red, and a bunch of other fiery boys. This is definitely a card that I'm interested in for the types of decks I like to draft, and I think it's a very good card.
Yeah, he brought up something really interesting in that you don't necessarily have to slam this on turn 2. He brought up a really good point in that red is very good at getting rid of emptying their hand, and red is not necessarily good at refueling, pun intended, fire flame. But, when you have nothing, you would want to play this and you're not really losing anything, you're just refueling. And so this is a really neat take. We've seen red kind of do this recently. We had Outpost Siege, I think it was, and they've been kind of playing with ways to give red card advantage, and I think this is a really neat way to do that.
It's really interesting to me because I was definitely expecting the First Eruption to be uncommon and the Flame of Keld to be rare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like the one that lets any red source you control deals more damage to the thing and lets you draw cards to the thing. The Flame of Keld, for those who are listening, is a red and generic mana for a enchantment saga uncommon. Chapter 1, you're discarding your entire hand, which he talked about. Chapter 2, you're drawing 2 cards, but you're kind of drawing 3 because you get your draw for turn plus these 2. And then lastly, if a red source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player this turn, it deals that much damage plus 2 to that permanent or player instead. That's very powerful. That's super scary, even if they see it coming.
Yeah.
You've already drawn cards off this thing. You've already played a bunch of creatures. Your opponent's sitting there just going oh my God, what am I supposed to do when everything gets +2 +0, essentially. If you have burn spells in your hand, they deal that much more damage, which is fantastic. The Flame of Keld is, again, one of those really interesting saga cards that I think if you play it correctly and you play it at the right time, never ever play it on turn 2. But if you play at the right time, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, there's situations where you play this on turn 4 with 2-drop, play this. This is definitely a 4 or a 5-drop in the types of decks where you would even want the Flame of Keld.
Right.
And the other interesting thing that I really like about this card is when you have this in your deck, it's probably the best card in your deck, but most decks don't want it.
Yeah,
and so you're able to get the best card in your deck 4th or 5th or 6th because the rest of your deck is 2 2s for 2, 3 3s for 3.
Reminds me a little of Bedlam Reveler too. I remember when that card came out, and you brought up a really good point of identifying who wants this. I remember when Bedlam Reveler first came out, people were like, "Why would I want to discard 3 cards?" And then you get the people that were like, when your hand is Garbo, you're really happy to do it, and then get 3 more. But there were just those diehard people that just didn't.
Discard your hand is not a great sentence, but we can mitigate that.
Yeah.
Next up is Frenzied Rage. For a red and a generic mana, it is a common enchantment aura of enchant creature. Enchanting creature gets +2/+1 and has menace.
Yo, this card is
legitimate.
I mean, we had Madcap Skills, which was this card,
Was it
but
like 3/3?
but +3/+0
That was nuts.
instead of +2/+1.
Yeah. Yes.
So this is, I guess, powered down version of Madcap Skills, but that's fine.
Fine.
It's still just gonna wreck face. Like, this card is going to mess with combat and murder a lot of people.
If you're running Danitha, it just costs 1 red.
Yeah. There you go. If you're running 1/1s for 1, this is a 3/2 menace. This is a what was the Minotaur? Zombie Minotaur attacking you on turn 2. This card is really good.
Madcap Skills was like bananas.
Out of this
that
world.
was It was way, way too good. Whereas this one is just very, very good. Play the copies that you have. Recognize how crazy good Menace is once you give the bonuses like this.
And again, this is probably another one of these cards that you're going to get 14th.
Yeah.
Because only very specific decks want this effect in there. But with the decks that want it, boy, it's going to be good. And there's a bunch of those in Dominaria, it seems.
Which is nice. And
Which
I appreciate
love,
that.
Yeah. It rewards you for sticking to a plan.
It does. And this is far better in draft than in seal. Don't go too nuts if you open a bunch of these in seal, because you're going to get diminishing returns. Yeah. Like the idea that you can craft a curve and you can craft these cards to go on the creatures on that curve, that's great. But sealed, not so much. Gitu Chronicler is a red and generic mana for a 1/3 common human wizard with a kicker of a red and 3 generic mana. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So this presents a really interesting challenge.
I have a question, and I don't know if you guys can answer this or not, but I wasn't around for the introduction of the Gitu and Jaya and things like that. Jaya's of the Gitu, but it seems like they're really leaning on the Gitu playing with fire in this set. Was that always
the
their
Gitu
thing?
people have always been fire-based.
Okay, and how come Jaya's not?
She's from the Gitu,
Okay.
but that's not who she is.
But then she went to the Tolarian Academy,
Okay.
so now she's red-blue.
Okay, because I was going to say, I'd never gotten that impression from her that she dabbled in this at all. So
No,
it's very
this is
surprising
just where
to
she's
see.
from.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how deeply that ran.
I mean, you have to, I think, ask yourself, A, do you want a 2-mana 1/3?
No.
Do I want a 6-mana 1/3 that gets back an instant or sorcery?
Yes.
Usually.
In limited, you definitely want the anarchist text. Most of the time, we'll wait until turn 6 to cast this, or if our opponents have a very fast start, in a pinch, we can play a 1/3, which is cool.
Right. You're just never going to feel good playing the 1/3.
Yeah.
So be aware that you shouldn't think of this as a 2-drop. Think of it as a 6-drop.
Yeah.
And
unless your opponent has a very quick start, and then you can be like, all right, fine, you went 1-drop, 2-drop. Here's an idiot.
Right. But what I'm saying is, like, when you're building your deck, I would think of it more of a 6-drop as a 2-drop.
Absolutely.
Now, clearly, you can have more in your sideboard that are just common. And if you do, you can bring them in as sort of roadblocks, as you want to stop people from getting you. But otherwise, I just think it's a 6-mana
It's a
card.
6-drop. This is a control card, by the way, for your red-black removal kind of decks, your red-blue, bounce and get back your blink of an eyes and your burn spells and stuff like that. That in a pinch can provide you with 3 toughness.
Right. This is one of those, like, the kicker costs real high, but the upside could be also very high. Gitu Journey Mage is a red and 2 generic mana for a common 3/2 human wizard. When it enters the battlefield, if you control another wizard, it deals 2 damage to each opponent.
Does this that's a wizard. So you might play your Gitu Chronicler on turn 2 in order to get the trigger from Gitu Journey Mage,
Which is totally fine.
Which is fantastic. This thing's already a Warpath Ghoul that shocks something when it comes or shocks an opponent when it comes into play. That's crazy. That's basically haste, where you don't have to put the Journey Mage into the red zone, which is crazy.
Each opponent being a dog whistle for if you play 2-headed giant, that's each opponent, or if you play commander, that's everybody. That's always a good thing.
Yeah, the idea that Wizards has gotten more and more friendly with sort of the each thing, each opponent, each player, that is really awesome.
It's a problem for Brawl. There are a couple cards that are each that realistically should not be each. The real problem being Torment of Hailfire. That says each for no particular reason.
But let me just say, when you've seen it go off in Commander, it's a whole other story because the table just loses their minds.
It's something else. But yeah, Journey Mage isn't going to be that level of problem, and I think that it's a very good card.
Right, this is a good card. It needs to be on the curve. It's part of the Wizards deck. This is one of those that if you have multiples of, that's great. Because
this is your workhorse. This is the Journey Mage is an apt description. This is a journeyman's card. You're not surprised to wheel a copy, but if you wheel a copy, you're like, hey, that's exciting. I'm pretty happy that I have this red-blue Wizards deck now that I've seen at pick 10.
Right.
Journey Mage. You're never going to first pick it, but It's serviceable.
It's one of those that if you have to cut it, it's cool.
Yeah.
But if it's part of your wizard deck, make sure you keep it because you need all the wizard triggers you can get.
Yes.
And clearly this one is a pushed one. Ghitu Lava Runner is a 1 red 1/2. But as long as there are 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, it gets +1/+0 and haste. This is a common.
Hard to do.
Wow.
This is a common human wizard. This is, Wizard plays this game. They do this dance of we can't give you Goblin Guide. But if we give you something close, are you cool with that?
Right.
Are you all right with that?
This is really an interesting way to do this because getting 2 instants and sorceries in your grave, getting spell mastery, as it were,
Right.
calling back to Origins, not the easiest thing ever.
Right.
But it seems like what they've done with these 1-drops is, you get something on turn 1, but if you have to wait, it's not like horrible on turn 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Which I really like about this.
Yeah. If you kind of work for it a little bit, it can pay off for you.
You don't even have to work for it. You can just have it in your deck and your aggressive, 15 land draft deck.
Sure.
Right? And so you're already playing 1-drops. So if you have 2 of these and 2 other 1-drops and then 10 2s, that's how those decks always look, is they have, the 15 lands and then the, Impetuous Sun Chaser kind of cards that are just haste but low value. But if you happen to draw this later, you've already cast some shocks and some magma sprays and some lightning strikes. It is a 2/2 haste. So it's not a horrendously bad top deck, especially in that kind of draft archetype.
Right, which is to say, don't play this in sealed.
Correct.
This card is bad in sealed.
TLDR.
Real bad in sealed.
Seriously bad in sealed. It's really good in draft because you can do that sort of thing, but don't play it in sealed. And I don't see this in constructed.
I don't think so either. There are too many good 1-drops right now.
Pauper might want it.
Pauper may want it. It's possible. When you can craft your deck around trying to trigger a Ghitu Lava Runner. But you already have Soulscar Mage. If you have a spell-heavy red deck, you've got Bomat Courier and Fanatical Firebrand. I just don't see it for this card in constructed.
I mean, Bomat Courier alone, that card is bananas.
Yeah, of course.
That card's crazy. All right. Goblin Barrage is a sort of harkens back to Goblin Grenade. For a red and 3 generic mana, it is an uncommon sorcery that has kicker of sacrifice an artifact or goblin. It deals 4 damage to target creature. If the spell was kicked, it also deals 4 damage to target player or planeswalker. Super good.
Yeah.
Card's great.
Yeah.
This card is crazy good. I mean, if you have goblins to sacrifice, awesome. If you don't, whatever artifact you have laying around, that's cool too. 4 damage, up to 8 damage, 4 to that and 4 to them is huge.
Yep.
Even Goblin Grenade was one or the other. You didn't get both.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
There's also 1 red mana.
Well,
yeah.
Saying.
Just saying. I mean, not that was
Those
a fair
are
magic
the
card.
days.
Additional cost. Yeah, for sure. This is a good card. I mean, 4 damage for 4 mana is a rate that you are willing to play in limited. You'll play probably 3 copies of this in your limited decks.
Sure.
By the time you get to the 4th, it's how many red 4 mana instants and sorceries are we really willing to play?
When have you ever turned them down?
4 mana removal spells? I mean, how many impales are we playing, right? And this is impale.
True.
This is not.
That's true.
So
I mean, right. Eviscerate is awesome and just destroys a thing, and this can do both.
This does both, but it also doesn't destroy it if it has 6 toughness. You know what I
Right.
mean? So there's some upside, there's some downside here.
The returns diminish.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in sealed, 100% play everything you open. In draft, don't go too crazy with it because it's a 4-drop, but it's still very good removal.
Yep.
And we move on here next to Goblin Chainwhirler, in which we have a special guest. Let's see who it is, what they said.
What's up, Magic Mikes? This is Eric Froehlich from ChannelFireball.com and also the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour Hall of Fame. The card I want to talk to you about today is Goblin Chainwhirler. I think this is one of the best cards in Dominaria. Now, the downsides to this card cost triple red. The upsides are pretty much everything else. This is a 3/3 first strike for 3, which is already a pretty reasonable rate for a red deck. Now, there are a number of decks that have been picking up in popularity that are pretty good against red. One of the best strategies against them is to go wide, and token strategies do that extremely well. We have Servo Expedition, Saram's Expertise, and the white-green token deck, and the white-black vampire deck has cards like Queen's Commission, Call to the Feast. These create lifelinking tokens that are quite good against red. Now, Goblin Chainwhirler wipes them all out. It kills Bomat Couriers, it kills Glint Sleeve Siphoners, it kills Champion of Wits. There's a lot of things this kills. It also gets to deal 1 to each Planeswalker, which is enough to finish off a Chandra that came down and killed a creature. It also deals 1 to your opponent, which, it doesn't sound like a lot, but 1 damage is still 5% of their life total, and every point counts in a red deck.
That was awesome. Let's see who's next.
Magic Mikes, it's me, Patrick Sullivan. You may know me from my commentary on the SCG Tour or various Twitter beefs. And at the risk of agitating Aaron a little bit. The card that I want to talk about is something that I think could be good for modern burn decks, and it's Goblin Chainwhirler. I think a lot of people are sleeping on this card, and I did too initially when I read it. I didn't think very much of it, and I think for standard level play, unless there's a lot of one-toughness creatures floating around, probably not good enough to show up. But for modern, I think it could be potentially a very good sideboard card. I put a premium on having sideboard cards that either deal damage or have a creature left over. So sometimes you need to be playing with Path to Exile or Tormod's Crypt for various reasons, but I like the sideboard to be as much about Searing Bloods and Smash to Smithereens as possible, and I think Chainwhirler fits into that mode. There's 2 decks right now that are very popular in Modern, I think, that are very vulnerable to this card in Affinity and Mardu Pyromancer. There's a couple other fringe decks as well, like Infect, some builds of Collected Company, some builds of Dredge, and I think people are flooding the board with 1 toughness creatures, which happens a lot in Modern, especially with Affinity and Mardu Pyromancer. This card's a really good way of playing catch-up. Also, First Strike pairs very nicely in combat with all of your instant speed direct damage, so the body isn't trivial as well. So I think that's a one to look out for, not necessarily for every Modern format or every Modern metagame, but definitely something I want to have in my toolbox as a potential sideboard card for decks that are flooding the battlefield with 1 toughness creatures. So, thanks for listening to my piece, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Aww. I couldn't think of anybody else who had something to say about this. It had to be P. Sully. There's the only person I could. And it ended up being 2, so that was even better.
I mean, look at the pedigree of the special guests on this one.
You can do a lot worse than listen to a Hall of Famer and the guy who owns and has founded the Red Box.
Yeah.
That is some pedigree. And yeah, I mean, in the line of the triple pipped creatures, obviously Goblin Chainwhirler is going to be my favorite as well. I mean, look at this card.
Well, of course.
It's got so much stuff that it does.
Now, see, I want to inject a little black into this. What and this will never happen. Like, this would be Christmas land. But if there was only some way to, like, it enters the battlefield, give it Death Touch, and then...
Oh, sure.
Oh, my goodness.
Love it.
I could die a happy woman at that point.
Wow.
Because 1 damage is cute, but I want to kill all your stuff.
I'm sure there's like a god or an artifact that gives all your creatures Death Touch. There has to be,
sure
right?
There is.
Anyway.
Either way, for those who don't know, Goblin Chainwhirler is a 3-red, 3/3 rare Goblin Warrior with First Strike. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and Planeswalker they control. So the ability to destroy the token strategies, as they mentioned, the ability to kind of have First Strike so you can have an advantage in combat. I don't need to say it, but I'll say it. Play it in limited. Play always limited. This card is a great first pick, early pick.
Absolutely.
It's good on turn 5 because, again, if you deal 1 to all of their stuff, and again, note it's only dealing 1 to their stuff.
Their stuff.
Not
That's
your
hugely
stuff.
important. Yes.
And I think it's important to note it's tempting with red decks to play things first main phase, but this can also be something that you can trick people into. Sometimes you make attacks and their creatures might have more toughness, so they'll feel very comfortable, but with that damage still on there, you can play it second main and wipe things out. That's something I've done in previous decks before, and a lot of times people won't expect that from a red deck. They'll expect you to just run everything out there, and you can play it a little more strategically.
Now, I thought this was, like, good, but, like, now I've heard Ephro and P-Cell, and I'm just like, all right, Stars Bananas.
They kind of ruined my flow because I was really hoping to get a pie bet out of you with this one. Because this was like my guy. This was the card that I was like, this is the one. And then we had, actual Ephro and actual P-Sully kind of ruin it. But yeah, I mean, they're all right. We've also got Goblin Warchief in this set to give it haste. We've got Scourge Prospector in this set to get this out on turn 2, which is we've got Path of Metal in this set that has a very similar effect. It also triggers the Path of Metal.
There's been a lot of talk of even modern goblins.
Yes.
That there have been maybe some pieces missing from that tribe for a while, and we're getting some nice toys, and so I don't personally want to see that in modern, but if some people get to live their dream and play their archetype, I'm all for it.
Oh man,
this card is bananas.
Fair enough. Well, we certainly have the word now, and
Speak of the devil, and he shall appear.
This is the first time it's modern legal, yeah?
Yes, it is. Goblin Warchief is a 2-red and 1 generic mana 2/2 uncommon Goblin Warrior. Goblin spells you cast cost 1 generic mana less to cast, and goblins you control have haste.
Shout out to Mons, one of the original Magic designers, and of course the namesake of Mons, Goblin Raiders, in the flavor text there. Goblin Warchief has been a staple of the Legacy Goblins archetype since Legacy Goblins became a thing, which was basically the beginning of the Legacy format.
Right.
Goblin Warchief is extremely potent, extremely dangerous, and the real reason why Modern Goblins looks like it's going to be a thing now, because now you have War Chief and things like Pyro. What's the protection from Blue Guy?
Goblin Pile Driver.
Pile Driver.
Pile Driver, yes.
1 mana hasty pile drivers, I can get behind that.
Goblin Rabble Master's a thing.
Yep, Rabble Master,
man.
absolutely. So you get to, those are both really good additions to a Goblin strategy.
This is one of those cards, I think, Wizards, they want that to exist.
Yes.
And that ultimately, okay, what tools do you need? All right, here's this
They're
one.
never going to give us Lackey, but they're going to give us everything else.
And you never
everything
forget the first time you die to a Goblin Grenade, especially in Modern. Like, you'll be going about your business, say you're at like an open, you hit like round 4, and you're like, feeling pretty good, I'm 3-1, what can go wrong? And then like someone plays a turn 1 Goblin, you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And it just happens. It happens so fast. Like, you think you're at like, I'm at a nice, like, comfortable 6, this is good. And I'm like, Goblin Grenade, you're like,
No.
it just happens so fast. That's the only thing I keep thinking of.
I mean, ultimately, it's sort of in a vacuum. This is a 3-mana 2/2 haste guy. That's fine.
Which is already a card you play in Limited.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
take it.
like you're already going to get there and swing in immediately on turn 3. That's great. But every other goblin you have gets better, and that's kind of the long and short of it. All of them get cheaper. All of them get faster, I guess is a way to put it. So there's not a lot to lose in Goblin War Chief, and there's a ton of upside.
And I have to say, if I had to face a mono red deck in Modern, I would rather it be Goblins than the current version of Burn. Like, I don't mind losing a bunch of creatures. I just hate losing, like, ow, no.
Unless you had this angel that made you X.
Right.
That card's fair.
Oh, shillelagh.
Haphazard Bombardment
That's
There we go.
mouthful.
is a
Haphazard Bombardment.
haphazard. It's not Duke's a hazard bombardment, y'all.
Might as well be.
Might as well be.
Get out of here.
Haphazard Bombardment is a red and 5 generic mana rare enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, choose 4 non-enchantment permanents you don't control
You know Burn players can't understand all those words. Like, come on.
and put an aim counter on each of them.
Yeah, aim counters.
At
bro.
the beginning of your end step, if 2 or more permanents you don't control have an aim counter on them, destroy one of those permanents at random.
Look at poor Ruben.
What is
He's
happening?
communicating grunts to him.
Look, I
Like,
know what red does, all right? I'm the red representative at the table. It deals damage, it has goblins, it has adorable things, it gives haste, it gives menace. But then every once in a while, it also does this random stuff where it's just like, hey, shuffle all of the things and put them back somewhere. Or pay 8 mana
You
and...
know what this reminds me of? Is go with me on this. I'm gonna go a little deep here. You know when there's like a hit TV show that's on for like years and years, and you get that one actress who's like, you know what? I'm gonna quit this plum gig for other opportunities,
Yeah.
and then you never see her again.
Yep.
You know what red is good for. You know what Bird is here for. This is that actress who's like, I want a serious career. No, you don't. Just throw burn spells.
I mean,
It's what
red
you're
does
here
this.
for.
It always has this,
Silly,
penny rare.
goofy.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Look at it,
hilarious and
different.
adorable.
Go deep.
But boy, is it not great.
Stick to what you're good at, girl.
I don't think it is unplayable in sealed.
No, I think it's fine.
I
It's
think
sealed.
in sealed is fine. I think draft is pretty horrible because it's just that format's faster. Yeah, it's nice that it triggers on your end step, so you get something of the 4 right away, which is great.
It's also theoretically 3 Stone Rains. Like this is another 6 mana wrath,
Seriously?
kind of.
Theoretically, it is
3
4
Stone Rains, seriously.
Nice. And note 4 non-enchantment permanents. Was that necessary?
Lets you
Was
choose
that-
This
planeswalkers.
is too
Lets you
much.
choose. I mean, it does have some interesting variability to it, but
I guess-
it is quite haphazard. We did definitely jump the General Lee and pause mid intro sequence and be, "Look, how are we going to get out of this bucket of
It's
syrup?"
doing a lot.
I mean, yeah.
And hope that the bombardment solves the problem.
This is a weird, red can't get rid of enchantments. We're seriously telling you can't get rid of enchantments. Even your random rando card from Dominaria doesn't get rid of enchantments.
Moving on.
Okay, moving on. We have Jaya Ballard with a very special guest. Let's see who it is.
Greetings, Magic Mikes. It is I, Jaya Ballard, hailing from the great plain of Dominaria. 1600 years ago, I was but a humble task mage, a thief for hire, until one day I was caught breaking into the chambers of the mage Joda, now known as the Archmage Eternal. He became my teacher, and we went on many adventures, averting an apocalypse and even ending the Ice Age, until one day the evil wizard Marcel, known as the Pretender, attempted to possess me, and Joda, doing what he could to save my life, smashed his magic mirror into my face. It ignited my spark, and I became a planeswalker, an immortal being of nearly limitless power, until 60 years ago, when an event known as the Mending happened. It stole my immortality and limited the rage of my fiery inferno, and as you can see, I have aged a good deal. But I'm not out of the game yet, In fact, I have just witnessed what is perhaps my greatest accomplishment yet. A new card in the game of Magic in the set Dominaria. A Planeswalker. Which Planeswalker might I be referring to? Of course, I talk about myself. The humble Jaya Ballard. I enter the battlefield with 5 loyalty and cost 2 colorless and 3 red. I have 3 loyalty abilities, all of which are fantastic. My +1 adds 3 red mana to your mana pool, which you can use to cast fantastic spells such as Incinerate, Pyroclasm, or even, might I recommend, Pyroblast, which I would use to point at the face of the smarmy mage known as Jace, who styles himself as the Mind Sculptor. My other +1 lets you loot, discarding useless spells to find fantastic replacements such as Infernal, Meteor Shower, or even, my favorite, Wildfire, which lets you light their creatures on fire and destroy their lands. Now some have said, Jaya, is there really any subtlety to spells such as Wildfire? But let me tell you about those naysayers, my friend. They're dead. And of course, what Planeswalker would be complete without an ultimate? My ultimate is -8 and lets you cast instants and sorceries from your graveyard, much like the magic spell known as Past in Flames. Very fitting, given that I am indeed Magic's Past in Flames. Flashback those burn spells. Flashback those line destruction spells. Make them fear your fiery wrath. And the Planeswalker known as Jaya Ballard. Thank you for having me on your show, and remember to always fight fire with fire.
Wow. My gosh. Cube April outdid herself on that one.
She's really embraced the Jaya thing. Like I know she's tweeted about how much the character means to her, and that Jaya was a big reason she either started playing or fell even more in love with the game. And she was so ecstatic to see Jaya come back, and it's been really heartwarming watching her really just dive into it. And just when you think you'd found like we knew she was cosplaying it for Seattle, I thought that was kind of where it was going to stop. Not that I wanted it to stop, but I was like, it can't get any bigger than that. And she's like, oh no, we're gonna do deck techs, we're gonna do streams, like we're doing this. And I think
pre-release. We're gonna do the Magic Mike set review. Wow.
Take it to the limit.
I thought I was already in love with Jaya Ballard, and I thought I was already in love with Cube April.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Wow.
Yeah, I am.
That was awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cube April, for hanging out and doing that for us. That was great. Jaya Ballard, in and of itself, is a Planeswalker, is super sweet, is a mythic rare, and for good reason. This is a card full of possibilities. I don't think it's necessarily like super hardcore Pro Tour constructed whatever. I think you're going to have a lot more fun with this card. I think this card, just like any Planeswalker Unlimited, is bananas. Even if you're not able to destroy her +1 to add mana, you discard the spells that are sucky to get spells that don't suck. Which is a thing. And -8, of course, you can play the stuff from your graveyard, which is also great. But the ability to essentially filter your cards through and add more mana to play your big spells, Jaya has a lot of awesome things for her.
Before I say my piece, this is representative of a pie bet. I think that this will make the top 8 of a Grand Prix or a Pro Tour before the next set comes out.
You got it.
All right. There we go.
Pie bet number 1.
This card is freaking bananas. It might be the best card in the set. So 5 mana, make 3 mana is an effect that we've seen a lot before, and it's always good. Nissa, Garrick, there's another 4 mana creature that I can't think of off the top of my head.
You're talking about like Garrick Wildspeaker?
Yeah. Pay 4 mana, untap 2 lands. Yeah. That costs 2 mana.
Garrick Wildspeaker?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
There are a couple other ones that have the ability to allow you to play another effect. The 3 red mana is no joke, but I still think that this is an uber powerful Planeswalker. Being able to have 2 +1 abilities has always been good as well. All of the Gideons, the original Elspeth, being able to immediately go up to 6. And the -8 of getting an emblem to be able to recast all of the other removal spells in your deck. I think that there are big red strategies that have recently become more popular. Treasure Red is also another one. I'm not necessarily thinking that this is going to be a finisher in an aggro deck. I think there are probably 5 drops that you'd rather play. Mm-hmm. But I think that this card is absolutely bonkers in a very good way, in a way that we haven't seen red go in Standard in a little while. And I think that the pieces are in place that Jaya can be a Pro Tour top 8ing, Grand Prix top 8ing card.
Good luck with that. I hope that pie tastes real good. All right.
I'm going to throw Ruben a little bit of a bone here. I don't necessarily think in Standard However, I wouldn't be surprised to see her pop up in the older formats. There are sort of the Dragon Stompy decks, which you see in Legacy and Vintage, where, you know, they're known for, you know, their Desperate Rituals, their Simian Spirit Guides, their Mox Rubies, and sort of cheating out big red, you know, haymakers to sort of take over the game with Blood Moon and things like that. We're using Fiery Confluence right now, and I know 4 is kind of the magic number, but, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see her show up as like a 1 of, maybe even a 2 of. You know, when you have all that mana and nothing to do, you know, making Jaya Ballard is not a bad proposition.
If I lose a pie bet because Jaya didn't make the top 8 of a Grand Prix or a Pro Tour in the next 6 months, that's not a me problem.
Oh, now it's not a you problem.
That's a y'all problem.
I
3
like
months.
this.
3 months.
I like this. He's
No.
like, wait,
Jaya,
but if I lose, it ain't on me.
No,
It's on y'all.
I think that this card is pushed in all the right ways. I think that when they print Planeswalkers that are key story points, especially from a historic perspective, they try desperately and madly to make them relevant. And I think that is a little bit of a signal to me that Jaya is gonna be a player. And if it's not, it'll also still be fun and limited, which I really quite enjoy.
Yes.
So.
And that'll be some nice pie.
Okay, buddy.
Jaya's Immolating Inferno is a 2 red and X rare legendary sorcery that you may cast legendary sorceries only if you control a legendary creature or planeswalker. Jaya's Immolating Inferno deals X damage to each of up to 3 targets.
Also, targets, right? Not creature or player. Now, the new redirection rule got rid of.
Any target.
Yeah, love it. And people were joking about, I'm going to deal 3 damage to your land. No, come on, people. It's shorthand, we get it. But anyway, so this is obviously signifying Jaya's Spark being ignited, the Cube April just referenced.
Yeah.
This is always a 3-for-1. How cool is that?
That's amazing. Like, this card is bananas in limited. It is crazy, crazy good. Yeah, you need a legendary whatever. There's plenty of legendary whatevers so you can make sure you can have a creature or a planeswalker out there, more than likely a creature. But that doesn't matter because you cast it for 5 and you deal 3, 3, 3. I mean, like, you're going to wipe their board. You're going to just kill their best creatures. I mean, you're going to do everything you want a monster spell like this to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, easy first pick, easy sort of build around me. If you can play it and you have just like a handful of legendary creatures, like this card is crazy good when you play it. And that's kind of long and short of it. I don't know if this has any constructed.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Probably not. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Effects like this typically don't see play in constructed, but there are exceptions.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's iffy, I think, at best. And but again,
limited bomb, absolutely.
Uber bomb, and again, I mean, like a casual superstar. You know, that and that. I got a bunch of mana. It's cool.
When I look at that card, I think of I would never admit this publicly, but I have been deep in the files of my computer. I have been piecing together. I'm so ashamed.
Careful.
Uh-oh.
I've been piecing together a Neheb the Worthy deck for EDH. And having, I know, I'm sorry. I just scrubbed the sin off of me. But, you know, having a commander that lets you sort of make a lot of red mana, I can't think of anything better to sort of pour that into than
There you go.
Than the Immolated Inferno itself. Yeah. Keldon Overseer is a red and 2 generic mana, 3/1 common human warrior. Has a kicker of a red and 3 generic mana. And it has haste. So it's a 3 mana, 3/1 haste with enters the battlefield. If it was kicked, you gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. Oh. Don't be afraid to play this on turn 3.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, if they got an empty board and you got dudes or whatever, just get them.
Even if they don't have an empty board. Get in the red zone. It's called the red zone. Tap your red mana. Get in the red zone. Yeah. Most of the kicker cards that we were covering at Common, like one of the halves is pretty bad, and then either the kicked half or the unkicked half. It's like you're probably 80% of the time you're doing it this way, but in a pinch you can do this other thing. Both versions of Keldon Overseer are great. You get a 3/1 haste for 3, which is awesome, or for 7 you get a 3/1 haste for 3 and a threaten, which is also awesome. Eldrazi Obligator has been seeing play recently in Modern. This is Obligator. This is not. But that's only 5.
Right. This is a common version of Eldrazi Obligator, essentially.
But yeah, in a pinch, this is gonna be great. I think this card's really good.
Christmas Land for me would be to kick this, take a creature, and then throw them both to Whisper and reset.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I like that. I can get behind that.
I want to live that dream. I want to be in that Christmas Land train.
I like that.
Pulling in.
That's the best way to use threat and effects to me. And there,
Is
and
to sack them? Yeah.
Yeah, and typically there is always something you can. I feel like there's always
A sack
there are
outlet of
always
some kind?
right.
Yeah.
They're always in sets, and so people,
There's a couple
mono
sack
red
outlets in
fans
the
like
set.
Ruben
All
are
right.
perfectly content to just steal it. Oh no, I want to steal it. Sack it.
Well,
That's-
yeah, I mean, sacking it to a Falconwrath Aristocrat or a Goblin Bombardment's the dream, but usually the game ends when you steal something and then attack them with a 3/1 and whatever
You're
you stole.
literally becoming Mr. Steal Your Girl.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a nice girl you have. This way. Card is super good, very playable and limited. Not something you first pick in draft or whatever, but it's a card in your mid to late picks that you want to be in your deck. And late game, you got 7 mana. You take their best thing and hit them with it. And if you got Whisper over here, and you're in the train, toot toot.
This is a 3-drop though. Put this in your 3-drop slot, and if you happen to kick it to win, that's good value.
Yeah, I mean, Beach Boys wrote a whole song about wouldn't it be nice. All right. Keldon Raider, you're welcome.
World.
Keldon Raider is a 2-red, 2 generic mana, 4/3 common human warrior. When it enters the battlefield, you may discard a card, and if you do, draw a card.
This seems fine.
Quintessential filtering red card.
Yeah.
It's good. Its power is equal to its mana cost, converted mana cost.
Yeah.
And, you get rid of your worst card in your hand, and you draw something hopefully better.
The card's great.
Yeah, this card is super good. It's just like, it's fine.
I don't even play red, and I can tell this is a good card. Like I would run this.
Well, it says discard a card on it. So.
It does right there. The first thing you do when you play it.
Yeah, the rummaging effect, very flavorful, being put on a Keldon Raider, because that's what you do.
She's riding, what is it, an ox?
That's a Kolos.
no.
The Kolos
Wow.
are
Come on,
the
National
beasts of
Geographic.
burden used primarily by the Keldons.
Okay.
And so there you go.
Get learnt, all right? Go.
Wild Kolos and fledgling Kolos. And,
Wow.
yeah,
got-
those
I
are
don't
some
I didn't know you had this in you.
Urza's Destiny cards from back in the day.
He will take no disrespect. Keldon Raider, that said, is not the greatest creature of all time. It is it's a fine 4-drop that you'd be
It's
happy
sixth.
to play.
It's fine.
It's you'll pick it middling,
good.
you know, and that's okay. Doesn't need to be anything beyond that. Keldon Warcaller is a red and a generic mana 2/2. Whenever it attacks, you put a lore counter on target saga you control. Again, who is this for? What are you doing?
Well,
Yeah.
you put it on the Flames of Keld because
Right.
it's a Keldon Warcaller.
So
You
are
keep
we?
the
Do you
flames
think that we're
burning.
triggering this more often in limited, or the kicked spell bear that we talked about earlier? Like how often?
No.
Dude, you're triggering me. I
think about
can't.
this now. My Christmas land, if we're doing this, is the Chainers eat the Chainers tournament.
Sure.
So you just keep it on the drain and be like, boop, drain 2, boop.
Well,
drain
no,
it only puts it
one.
on.
It only pushes it forward.
It only continues.
Oh, I thought it would just keep.
No,
you
it
with
only
that. Okay,
it's
I
only
read that
good
wrong.
at telling stories, not taking the stories back.
It calls the stories on top of the mountain.
All right, then
I don't. I'm like, I don't get it. It's a bear. Okay, it's a bear. It's 2 mana 2/2. Just think of it as a 2 mana 2/2.
Don't tell it on the mountain.
I would note, for whatever it's worth, this is not a May. You must do
must.
this. So be prepared for that. I just don't think it's going to see a lot of impact at all.
Now,
It's
to be
so
clear,
weird.
if you don't have a saga, you can still attack,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Okay, I
Yeah.
didn't know. Okay, that's sometimes confusing.
It's just
people.
gonna fizzle the trigger.
Right. There'll be no trigger because there's no saga. If there is a saga, it will happen. And it's only for yours, by the way.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. But again, this is just, it's such a weird outside. Even Kicker was more relevant than this.
Yeah.
Like, at least there's a lot of Kicker cards in the world. There's only like 17 lore saga cards. Anyway, so I'm just noting it's a bear. All right, treat it as a bear, grab it like a
2/2 for
bear,
2.
play it like a bear, move on. Orcish Vandal is a red and generic mana 1/1 uncommon orc warrior that has tap, sacrifice an artifact, : it deals 2 damage to any target. This is a card that will end the game for you in limited. We talked about the Relic Runner. We talked about the other ones that will, like the Cabal, what's his name, that deals 2 damage when you play historic spells. This one lets you take those historic spells and throw them in their face.
Yes.
Because you see, there's the history. You know, that's what he does. He's throwing stuff, and that's amazing.
This card is real good.
card is very good.
So I have an Atali the Primal Storm Brawl deck, and there are very few cards that are going to break through, pun intended, to get into that deck. It plays out a lot like Treasure Red. I make a lot of treasure tokens, and there are a lot of Azor's Gateways and Gate to the Afterlives and Godpharaoh's Gifts and artifact creatures and artifacts in that deck. Orcish Vandal is a great way to oh, we got these extra treasure tokens laying around, or this inspiring statuary that I don't need anymore on turn 35. Time to finish you, right? Everything is a weapon if you throw it hard enough, which I really enjoy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it also comes down very quickly. You're able to get it out super fast. And so, yeah, I definitely like Orcish Vandal quite a bit.
This is a card that ultimately will end you games, and B, if you're able to draft it early enough, you're able to really take artifacts or artifact creatures higher than you would normally.
Yeah.
There's a reason this is uncommon.
Yes.
It's because this thing is dangerous and will like start picking off your opponent's guys and all that stuff.
Lots of artifact tokens, servos, Ethereum cells off of Tezzeret, treasure, lots of ways, constructs from Karn, lots of ways to take advantage of the Orcish Vandal without having to sacrifice an entire card to it. But even if you are, it's still good value.
Now, you'll need a certain amount of artifacts in order to make this work. If you're in sealed and you have 2 or 3 artifacts, don't bother. Don't think of this as anything other than a 2-mana 1/1, which is weird and you probably shouldn't play it. Instead, go back to the Warcaller, because that's a bear, okay? That's a bear. It doesn't really do anything else. It's cool. Not if there's anything wrong with that.
Sometimes you got to work call a spade a spade. Just,
Wow.
I like that. That was well done.
That was fantastic. And that, Orcish Vandal's not a card I want to draft highly, but if I'm in the mono red, or if I'm in red black, if I'm in super aggro, and again, I have some artifacts already underway, this card is great. Radiating Lightning is a red and 3 generic mana instant. It is a common that deals 3 damage to target player and 1 damage to each creature that player controls.
Instant, by the way. So it resolve it after your opponent makes a bunch of saprolings during their turn. This is another way to end games. Just a super easy, simple burn spell.
Yeah, it's fine. It's obviously better against token strategies. If you're playing against saproling players, it's fine. This is a card for me that I'll happily certainly play it, and I want to believe it's good.
Fine.
I just don't think it's that good.
No, this will be a last pick a lot.
Yeah, this will come super late because it's not a huge effect for 4 mana. Dome you for 3. I hope I hit something on your board.
Right.
Is a better sideboard card than it is something you want to main deck. So even in sealed, I'd leave this on the sideboard. Bring it in when you're playing against a Saprolings player, and leave it out when you're not. Rampaging Cyclops is a red and 3 generic mana 4/4. It is a common Cyclops that says it gets -2/-0 as long as there are 2 or more creatures blocking it.
Love it.
This card is cool.
Very cool, very flavorful. It's a Cyclops. It's only got the one eye, so if there's 2 of you, you can't figure out who am I supposed to, what's going on. 4/4 for 4, no joke. You can get rid of blockers pretty easily in red, as we've discussed already. So this thing can end games relatively quickly, but it does have that downside to turn it into a 2/4.
I love the idea, but because remember, this is as long as.
Yeah.
So if you kill one of the creatures after they blocked it
it's
turns
not
back into a 4/4.
Yeah, not a trigger anymore.
No.
Yeah, once it's blocked by 2 and it can't decide, and you shock one of them, aha, I found my target.
Aha, 4 damage. Aha.
Yeah. There we go. This also dies to Eye Gouge. It's one of the first Cyclopses that they printed. So
wow.
Flavor win.
Flavor win.
Good job.
I see what you did there.
Did you?
I
see.
Okay. I like this card a lot. I don't love it. I don't think it's gonna be overpowered. I think there's a reason it's just common. Yeah. It's easy to power it down as a 2/4, but that's okay. I think it's better in draft because you're able to draft a curve. You want this to get on turn 4, and you're able to back it up with burn spells.
I also really appreciate that it's named Rampaging Cyclops, because Rampage as an ability was the exact opposite of what the ability on Rampaging Cyclops is.
Rampage gave +X/+X.
Okay.
Right?
We're close enough.
All right. Well, hey, man, you bring it up. I shoot it down. Look, Hope Streams.
I see what you did there.
Run Amok is a red and a generic mana for a common instant that target attacking creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample until end of turn. This is a brand new card in Dominaria.
Yeah,
that seems good.
I thought this was an existing card or just a reprint from somewhere, but no, that's all new.
That card's good.
That's a giant growth with some upside right there.
Yeah, sure is.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good solid. It's one of the better combat tricks.
Yeah, this is a combat trick. The trample is super relevant because you can cast it after blockers are already declared. It becomes a removal spell in addition to damage. Obviously, it's very corner case, but yeah, in the decks that you want to be running it, this is an absolute blowout every time.
I mean, 2 mana for that type of bonus.
It's pretty good.
It's good. Don't
Amok.
Amok.
Yeah. You ever seen Hocus Pocus?
Not.
Jeez.
It's soon enough time that I remember.
I was searching. I was racking my brain for what is the reference here.
Amok.
I didn't catch the. mean, I'm a Bette Midler fan as much as the next guy, but
I know, right? We all middler to some degree. But Run Amok in and of itself, again, the +3/+3 is huge. You don't really see that much in red, particularly that toughness boost in red. So this is unique. It's not first pickable window slam or anything. It's a
you'll wheel a lot of these.
Yeah, you'll mid to late these easily. It's just to note that like this is a powerful combat trick. Treat it as such. Don't go overboard. All right, let's move on here to Seismic Shift, a red and 3 generic mana for a common sorcery that destroys target land. Up to 2 target creatures can't block this turn. Now note there was a similar card to this. This isn't a very interesting card, so this is why I'm bringing this up. There was a similar card to this that did pretty much the exact same thing, but it said non-flying creatures can't block. This one you can say, okay, that can't block and that can't block, and this card's still unplayable.
I disagree. I'm highly interested in this deck for the aggro decks, for the red-white and the red-black, 1-drop, 2-drop aggro that always comes through. You always want to have a Seismic Shift kind of card that says, all right,
Is this how I sound when I try to put every card in dredge?
Yeah,
okay.
It really is. He's like, I can do this. We can do this.
Here's what's going to happen: is Seismic Shift is going to be when the stats come out for Magic Online of which cards have the highest win percentage win cast, because it's always this card. It's always Seismic Stomp. It's always Fissure. It's always creatures can't block this turn, because when you cast them, the game ends that turn.
Sure.
And that's what's going to happen with Seismic Shift, is you're going to be able to pick off one of their lands. They aren't going to be able to play their 6-drop that they drafted first. And then your Adamantine Walls and your 1/3s that you played earlier aren't going to be able to do the things that you played them early to do. Again, not going to be highly played. It's going to be a 14th pick a lot, but you do want one of these in some of your decks.
Sometimes, every once in a while,
Yeah.
when you're running low and you're feeling down. So look, I recognize the upside. I do. I recognize the upside of not being able to let their 2 best creatures block your stuff. That's totally cool. Pretty bad on an empty board.
And in Limited, it's not even that good in this set because we had the flip lands that we got used to.
Yeah, if we had some lands worth destroying, maybe.
So Demolish was like a playable, and Volcanic Impact were like reasonable cards because there were lands worth destroying. It's not really any lands worth destroying in this set. So
I mean, there's those like super cute, Forgotten Lands or whatever, or the ones that let you, like the white one lets you make soldiers, or the blue one lets you draw cards. Memorials, thank you. But like. Meh.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is a meh card. Yeah. I wouldn't really. He likes it. I don't like it.
It's fine.
I think it's bad. Shivan Fire is a 1-red common instant with kicker of 4 generic mana. It deals 2 damage to target creature, but if it's kicked, it deals 4 damage to that creature instead. This card is great.
Yep. This card is literal, actual burst lightning, but can't target players. Okay. And it's still great. It's still really good and limited. Shock for 1, or if you in a pinch, pay 5, deal 4 at instant speed for both effects. Very good card.
Yeah, you play every card, every copy open and sealed if you're in red. Yeah. Feel free to pick it early when you're in red as well and draft, and never not play this if you're in red. That can pretty much cover it. Yeah. Card's fantastic. It's no burst lightning because it can't deal to players,
but hey, whatever.
That's all right. Siege Gang Commander.
We're back. We're back, boys. All right.
7 printings of this bad boy, including this one. 2 red and 3 generic mana for a 2/2 rare goblin. Enters the battlefield, creating 3 1/1 red goblin creature tokens.
Which you can use Ruben Bressler tokens for.
Absolutely.
Bresslers to make 3 Bresslers.
Highly recommend.
For Max Bressler. And has a red and generic mana, sacrifice a goblin, it deals 2 damage to any target.
Do you know how many times I've lost Bridge from Below's because of this card?
Oh my.
Mm-hmm. Whole bunch.
5 power for 5 mana has been good since its original printing in Onslaught? Scourge. This is the thing that you used to put into play with Goblin Lackey back in the day. It is great. It is an army in a can. It is the original army in a can.
It's true.
Cloud Goat Ranger came out. Our Angel of Invention came out. Everything that makes tokens when it comes onto the battlefield can owe its allegiance to the Siege Gang Commander.
This is the granddaddy.
This is the one.
Am I the only one who feels like there has been a bit of a shift in terms of the way the goblins look in this set? Where I feel like their heads are certainly bigger, but I feel like they actually have a little bit more meat on them. Whereas I feel like in the past they might have been portrayed as being very malnourished or very frail.
Sure.
And I feel like they've got a little bit of beef on them in recent sets. Is that just me?
Well, I think that as you travel to different planes, the humans look different too. I mean, you look at the Keldans, for example, and they've got these big beefy Popeye arms. And you travel to various other planes and they have have different builds. They're slightly different. That works for merfolk, that works for elves. They all look different on different planes. Dominaria and goblins have sort of chiseled out this niche of not necessarily being as comical as goblins are.
That's a good take.
You know, for example, on Ravnica, they're very comical. Even though they're still quite dangerous, they've got that sort of Rakdos air to them. On Dominaria, you know, they definitely lift, right? They definitely are a little bit swole.
Wow.
And
we just dropped a swole gang commander.
yeah, swole gang commander.
I mean, this card is a limited bomb.
Yeah,
it is
absolutely.
a 100% first pick, first pack. I'm in red now because this card is bananas. It sacrifices any goblin, including itself. This card is 100% playable if you're anywhere near red. Can pull you into red if you're not into red yet, because the power of this card is real. Could very well see constructed play because it certainly has previously.
Yeah, absolutely. Has seen, I think every time that it's been in standard has been a standard player.
In some form or fashion.
In some form or fashion.
Right,
yeah.
even if it's just
Either
in the sideboard.
Right. So
but
there was obviously the goblins and the goblin bidding decks when it first came out. Then it was in Boat Brew when Boat Brew was a thing. When it was in like 10th or whatever.
Right.
So I highly anticipate Siege Gang Commander. Seeing a ton of play.
This card is super cool. I love the artwork too. Congratulations, Aaron Miller.
No creature type update is the other interesting thing for me. Still just a goblin. No war chief or no warrior. No soldier. Still just plain old goblin.
I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with it.
Skirk Prospector.
Also no creature type update. Yeah.
Well, all speaking of something that's come back from way
This
back.
was Onslaught, I believe. Might have been Scourge also.
Right, this is now in Modern, thanks to this printing. Skirk Prospector is a 1-red, 1/1 common goblin. It says sacrifice a goblin, add red. There's no more mana pools,
mana
y'all.
pool.
Add red.
Add red.
Add red. Sack a creature, get an advantage, get ahead in mana. Who cares if you have to sacrifice goblins to do so? This card can get you there. Skirk Prospector, again, this is one of those things where I think Wizards is like, okay, here's your tool, and here's your screwdriver, and here's your pliers, and see if you can actually make all of this work.
This is a dangerous card to put into Modern. I'm telling
we
you.
we already hear enough complaints about fast mana and how people think that Mox Opal needs to go and Simian Spirit Guide needs to go, and so I wonder if this is going to sort of add fuel to that fire of, you know, make it stop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good thing they didn't make another Mox. God, that'd be stupid.
Right?
Skizik is next.
Wow.
Help me understand this card, because I wasn't around
When
for
it was
this.
first printed.
Right,
This was
and
a rare.
Twitter seemed to just
This
love
was a
it.
rare in Invasion, and it's named Skizik.
Is it?
It is a red and 3
Is
generic
it just
mana.
based on the sound it makes? Or
Yes.
Is a red and 3 generic mana for a 5/3 now uncommon, used to be rare, elemental, with kicker of 1 red. It has trample and haste, and at the beginning of the end step, if Skizik wasn't kicked, sacrifice it. So 4 mana, 5/3 haste by itself, it dies at the end of turn.
Come on, Ball Lightning.
It's a ball lightning, yeah.
It is a ball lightning. And now, for 5 mana, you get a 5/3 trample haste that doesn't die.
It doesn't die at the end of the turn.
And that's great.
Definitely a good rate. I mean, this still saw a bunch of play when it was in Standard the first time around. Probably not anymore. I mean, we have access to Fleet Wheel Cruiser, and that doesn't really see any play.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I see it for Skizik this time, but definitely a fun callback.
I mean, this to me is like there's a reason it was downgraded.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason that we're okay with this to see more of it in our limited environments. You'll see like 1 or 2 of these per draft. If you're in red or aggro red, this card is fan-freaking-tastic. Don't get me wrong, this card is still very good, just not in the constructed hyper,
Probably not.
hyper cost efficient, everything must be the best of its mana cost type stuff.
For 4 mana, we get Hazaret. For 5 mana, we get Glorybringer. Skizik is both of those casting costs, but probably still not warranting a slot.
Right. I mean, Rekindling Phoenix
Oh yeah, for sure.
exists.
Well, Rekindling Phoenix is not the competition for Skizik.
Not
Skizik
necessarily.
is going up against the haste creatures as opposed to you're not putting Hellrider in the same category as Thunderbreak Regent, right? Those are
That's
different
fine.
decks.
Sure.
So
But
this is going up against the Hazarets, and even I would still play Fleet Wheel Cruiser over this.
Well,
so,
they get sealed away just the same. So.
that's true.
Oh, that's adorable. All right.
Well, the good news is that if you didn't kick it and they seal it away, when you unseal it, you still sacrifice it because it wasn't kicked this turn.
It's true.
So that's always fun.
And that's
Skizz a kicker.
Skizz a kicker.
Skizz a kick. For those who are curious about and sealed, this card is still very much playable.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And in draft, it is very much playable. This is a good card that just is not right for the constructed environment, but for limited, it's still great. Squee the Immortal.
Okay, shout out to my friend Allie Medwin.
Yes.
This was I think the second card she helped design, at first being Soul Separator. This was very much her baby, so shout out to her and my good friend and the godmother of the Trans Mafia for designing this card.
And she played this as her general
Yes, she sure
in
did.
Seattle. It was the first ever Squee opened from a booster pack. And then Allie immediately made it her general. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Which was great.
Yeah, Allie Medwin is an amazing person, and I worked with her at Star City Games for a while. Now she's making the Magic cards that I get to talk about, which is pretty cool.
Like this one.
Yes, Squee the Immortal is 2 red and a generic mana for a 2/1 legendary rare goblin. You may cast Squee the Immortal from your graveyard or from exile. You're never getting rid of it. Ever, 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 ever.
So the flavor behind Squee is that I think it was Volrath who put a curse on Squee that he could not die because he had so much. Because Volrath had so much fun killing Squee that he was just like, I'm just going to keep killing you, and then Squee is just accidentally immortal. And so all of the versions of Squee, including the Goblin Nabob, sort of harken back
Which
to
I
that.
am proud to say I have hard cast on many occasions.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It's a chump blocker in a pinch.
Yeah.
And so is Squee the Immortal. The other exciting thing about Squee is obviously the food chain implications, being able to sacrifice it for the mana, recast it, etc., etc. There are lots of cool things that you can do with Squee, with sacrifice outlets, Siege Gang Commander, obviously, we just talked about. Lots of cool stuff. You'll play this every time you have access to it in your limited decks. For sure.
Lord, yes. This card is fan-freaking-tastic. It can block. I mean, this is the type of card that never gets to block. It doesn't even enter the battlefield tapped. It's always there. Squee never goes away. Squee's always there. Oh my God. And so he has this toy, which is super cool.
Squeeze toy.
This is
Part of the legacy weapon, that adorable toy.
I know, right? Isn't that weird? But yet, it was true. So Squee the Immortal, definitely one of the coolest cards in the whole set. Move on here to Two-Headed Giant, of which we have a special guest.
Do we really?
Wow.
We do.
Wow.
Let's see what they have to say.
Hey Magic Mikes, Sam here from Rhystic Studies in the house. Quite literally, I'm in my house. And today I would like to talk about Two-Headed Giant. Alright, so this is a red creature. It's a 4/4 for 2 and 2 red, so 4/4 for 4. It has 2 heads. And the reason I chose to talk about this card is because Dominaria is chock full of references to Magic's past. This card is a nice nod to old school Magic design. Ken Nagel from Wizards R&D tweeted out recently that he was doing his best Richard Garfield impression when designing this card, and it shows. So when the creature attacks, again, it's a 4/4 for 4, so that's already good value. When it attacks, you flip 2 coins. If they both come up heads, then this creature gains double strike. And if they both come up tails, then the creature gains menace. But if they come up heads or tails, then nothing happens. So basically the heads have to decide and they have to agree to gain a bonus, which I think is clever and brilliant. So I really love this design because it also references another Magic format of Two-Headed Giant. So there's a lot of play on words and play on old school design. And I think it's going to be a powerhouse actually in draft for sure. So I really dig this design. It's really funny. It's whimsical. It's silly. It's a good creature, and I enjoyed the little references to old school Richard Garfield design. Thanks for inviting me on. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing what everyone else chose for Dominaria. Again, there are too many good cards and too many good references for old school players and new school players like myself alike. So thanks, guys. I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.
All right, so that was absolutely terrific. Thank you, Magic Man Sam.
Rhystic Studies.
Yes. Who makes some incredible videos on YouTube, and who picked a really cool card to talk about, because if the heads can't agree, they do nothing. It's
great.
That's
Like
so
Two-Headed
cool.
Giant, yeah.
Like Two-Headed Giant, yeah. I love it. It's got everything going for it. I mean, it's flavorful, it's fun, it's whimsical. It's a 4/4 for 4, like already with no downside. And 25% of the time, it gets 50% of the time, it gets one of the benefits. And then the other 50% of the time, it's, rats. Well, I guess they disagreed. And you just have a little bit of fun story moment with yourself every time you play this card. I think this card's really good. I'm glad Sam picked it. And yeah, it's a great one.
Man. I mean, it's a 4-mana 4/4 for 4. No matter what happens with the tails and the heads and the whatever, a 4-mana 4/4 in a limited environment is always playable, easily pickable early. Not, I think, my greatest pick one, pack one card, but you could do worse.
I'm still happy to pick it.
You could do a lot worse.
Oh, for sure.
Which is great. And I do think there's that feel of like old school Magic where you actually had to flip coins. I'm glad that's kind of left us and we get to have like a weird one-off reference and then we move on and don't flip coins anymore.
No,
I don't know. I've gotten a lot of pleasure out of watching people kill themselves with Mana Crypt. So
Well, that's true. You play a mana crypt against me, I will make him kill you with it. It will kill you dead, I promise. I have killed multiple people with their mana crypts. It feels good every time. But yeah, two-headed giant, absolutely sweet. Thanks a lot, Sam.
Yeah.
Move on here to Valduk, Keeper of the Flame, a red and 2 generic mana for a 3/2 uncommon legendary human shaman. At the beginning of combat, on your turn, for each, there's that for each thing again, for each aura and equipment attached to Valduk, Keeper of the Flame, create a 3/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step. So between the 2-drop that gets ridiculous and the 3-drop that gets ridiculous, there very well could be a deck here.
Sure.
Where you're just building your Voltrons and going after people because Valduk, whatever. The
I'm
point
not
is,
Keldon, so I don't know.
the Keeper of the Flame here is real and awesome, and it should be in all of your red decks. I've done it because, first of all, it's great on the curve, and secondly, it just makes all of your auras and equipment that much better. It makes you want to draft that stuff because of how good this card gets as a result of you having it.
It's a Warpath Cool to start with. Of note, you don't have to attack with Valduk. You just get the 3/1s. So you can just suit up Valduk, keep it out of combat, keep it away from Gideon's Punch, keep it away from that mid-combat removal and pump spells and all that garbage, and just send in your elemental creature tokens.
Well, it also kind of takes sort of the pants archetype of suiting up a big thing in a different direction, where normally it's literally putting all your eggs in one basket. You're suiting up this one thing, but Valduk takes it in a very different direction of, you're not just suiting up him, but he's able to kind of go wide with that, where instead of just, like you said, kind of attacking with that one thing and being very weak to, I don't think there's any edict effects in this set, but normally that would be the bane of a Bogle's type card's existence. You're able to kind of go wide and say, okay, not only do you have this fatty to deal with, here's some other little things too. If you thought that was bad, now you got all these to deal with too, and I think that's a neat direction.
The threat of Valduk is real also. Like if you play this on 3, even and you pass to your opponent and they have the choice between either developing their board state or killing Valduk, you've essentially time walked them a lot of the time because they're going to choose wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get got by Valduk.
Right.
I don't want that.
That's horrendous. Like if I go Valduk and my opponent plays a 3/3, and then I just go like, all right, short sword, equip, attack you for 3, for no loss of value of any of my own. Oh, by the way, Valduk now has an equipment or an aura on it. Like that's crazy. Much less if Valduk also joins in the red zone. So.
Yeah, or a sweet enchantment gets onto it, and all of a sudden he becomes like a 4/4 or something bigger than that.
The 2/1 Menace is a great one to put on Valduk, making it harder to kill and also putting additional power onto the board. This card's really good.
This card steamrolls really quickly.
Yes.
Like your opponent should be very scared. If you see this across the board, just kill it. Kill it dead as fast as possible. Varric's Bladewing, a callback to Rorik's Bladewing, is a 2-red, 2 generic mana mythic legendary dragon. It is a 4/4 with kicker of 3 that says it has flying and it enters the battlefield. If it was kicked, you create Karok's Bladewing.
Yes.
A legendary 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying.
Kelly Diggs clarified on Twitter that Varric's is a lady and Karok's is her man.
Yes. And if you look very, very closely at the art, they have wedding rings on their horns.
But that's Karok's. Karok's is that little light
in the background. And canonically speaking, Varric's and Karok's have a child named Tarok.
Oh, for God. Seriously?
That was printed in Future Sight. And
that card.
If you know the story, I won't spoil it for you, but that can't possibly end badly for Tarok.
You can totally spoil it. Who cares?
So Tarok eats the rest of his siblings. Canonically in the story of Future Sight.
He ate the babies?
He ate the rest of the babies. It's not good.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a little dark.
But Varric's, though, don't need no mans, but if she decides she wants one for 3 colors, 3 colors?
3 colors.
She can get her man.
So you get basically a Baneslayer Angel, not Baneslayer Angel, a Broodmate Dragon for 7, which is one more than Broodmate, but also easier to cast.
Right.
Or you can just have a 4/4 flyer for 4, which is also just a great card. Like, both halves of this card are really good.
It's an incredible rate, and you're totally okay with that. And their baby ate the babies.
Rest of the, that's not a happy story.
Nah, man.
So Rorik's, who was in Onslaught, was the progenitor of the Bladewing clan.
So he's grandpa.
He's grandpa or great-grandpa.
Great-grandpa.
Or someone.
Rorik's Mr. Bladewing, if you're nasty? Got it. Okay. This card is amazing and easily first pickable, easily playable every single time.
I like Varix because she's a shapely dragon. Because most dragons you see are like very like lithe iguana dragons, and this one is very clearly in the mode of I'm a successful dragon. I get to have my sandwiches. Right? Which I like, and you know there are in D&D especially there are dragons who sit on top of their piles of gold and become sort of like a little bit like Maw of Obsidian, where they just sort of lays around and get fat off of all of their stuff, and that's kind of what we got here with Varix.
This is a full-figured.
Yeah. Don't dragon shame. All right. She's perfectly fine with the level of her body fat index.
Warcry Phoenix is next. It's a red and 3 generic mana for an uncommon Phoenix. It is a 2/2 flying haste card. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, you may pay a red 2 generic mana. If you do, return Warcry Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking.
Now, this might surprise you, but I'm actually interested in this.
Well, it has the word graveyard.
Right there. Return
Obviously.
and graveyard.
Yeah, it's got
In succession.
I'm interested in at least testing it in Modern Dredge, because it's not difficult for us to get 3 creatures, and we're never going to get Ferocious for the the
ferocious Phoenix.
Yeah, so and a lot of the other Phoenix
this one's
just
the
kind
Battalion Phoenix.
Yeah, and a lot of the other
Battalion
Phoenixes just go back to your hand, and so I think there's some testing to be done whether or not you want to go the Scourge Devil route or go the Haunted Dead route, or I'm interested in this. I'm open to trying it.
Wow, I was not expecting this to be anywhere near
No, me neither.
Personally.
But, 4 mana, 2/2 flying haste, not really interested. I mean, if you discard it, you kind of get that return effect.
But a lot of the Phoenixes, though, I did go back and gather, a lot of them simply just go back to your hand.
Correct.
With the exception of, I think Chandra's Phoenix was like the last, and then the one
Chandra's
from
Phoenix
Cons.
goes back to your hands, too.
But Flame Wake, I think, is the right one.
No, Chandra's Phoenix comes back to the graveyard, isn't it?
No, Chandra's Phoenix. Chandra's Phoenix specifically goes to your hand. Flame Wake Phoenix is the one that's used in Hollow.
I could have sworn Chandra's Phoenix was
no. It's when you deal damage to an opponent with a burn spell or a planeswalker, it goes back to your hand. I'm almost
you get to
positive.
pay a red or something.
The bottom line is it's more rare that it comes back from the battlefield to the battlefield, which is why
historically Phoenixes definitely go back to your hand.
Yeah, so I'm interested in that.
Yeah, the Shivan Phoenix from Urza's Legacy, for example, is one that definitely goes back to your hand. But I definitely love it.
It just has a lot of words on it. It feels like there's just a ton of
so
words.
many words that it has to be good.
Right. On a random uncommon, I mean, it is a Sphinx. 4 mana 2/2 flying haste is not
Did you say
very...
a Sphinx?
It's a Phoenix.
Phoenix. a faux Phoenix.
It has the PH in it and the X in it.
Right.
Phoenix.
Phoenix. Got it. Got him, y'all. It's a 4 mana 2/2 flying haste creature is just not that.
It's not that exciting.
It's fine.
It's a 4 mana haste creature, so you're probably playing it in those aggressive decks. It's got some upside, so.
I mean, you're gonna play it because it has haste.
No, it's not.
It has evasion. I'm not going to first pick it. I'm not going to be super excited to get it beyond mid to late.
Yeah.
And in sealed, it's okay.
It's a recursive threat. I don't know when you're ever attacking with 3 creatures in sealed, but
well, it's my party, and I'll Warcry if I want to.
There you go.
Wow. All right. So Warlord's Fury is 1 red for a common sorcery that says creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn and draw a card. This card is bad because it basically is just cycle a card for 1 mana.
Right. So they see it coming a mile away.
Right. They see it coming 8 years away, so they can do whatever they need to get around it.
Yeah, this card's very bad.
If this card were good, like when you play this card and this card is good, you've already probably won that game.
Yeah.
This card isn't the
thing
tide
about
that
this
turns
card, right? This is not the tide that turns it. This is going into your put a bunch of instants and sorceries into your graveyard decks. This is going into your 13 land aggro all 1s and 2s deck.
Sure.
Just to be able to get the, there were a couple of other effects like this.
Cycle through.
Yeah, like Crash Through, I think was the card that was from Theros. It was like target creature can't block, draw a card. And you played that in your super aggro kind of stuff. So if there is that archetype, Warlord's Fury will be in those, but don't pick it on purpose because you'll get 4 by the end of the draft. This is always going to be last. Yeah.
This is an easy final, 14th to 13th to 15th pick type thing. And there's not much to be said. Don't play it in sealed.
Yeah.
Don't play it in draft unless you're doing the wacky craziness.
Right.
It's just not there. Wizard's Lightning, our final red card, is a red and 2 generic mana for an uncommon instant that says this spell costs 2 generic mana less to cast if you control a wizard. It deals 3 damage to any target. It is Lightning Bolt if you have a wizard. It is Lightning Bolt. This card is great. This card doesn't need a wizard to be great.
Yep.
Like, I'm still
3 damage
happy
for
playing
3 mana is always good enough in limited
Yes.
environments. The card Lightning Bolt is bananas in every format in which it's legal. So if you have a wizard, for example, Soulscar Mage is still legal. There's plenty of new wizards in Dominaria, of course.
Oh yeah.
But I'm most interested in pairing this in Standard with Soulscar Mage because it gives the Lightning Bolt the -1/-1 counters,
Wow.
so you can kill off gods and things with your lightning bolts. And then, of course, it grows the Soulscar Mage. But I love the flavor text as well. This one matches up with also the wizard's response. The first, basically saying that the first spell was Lightning Bolt, the second spell was Counter Spell, and I love the story that these two cards tell.
Oh man, this is just value. Like, whether you even have to pay full price for it or you get the discount, I'm never unhappy with this.
Yep.
I'll pick it first. I'll pick a bunch of them.
I'll pick it first.
And I'll be happy if my wizards are there, and I'll be happy if they're not.
Yep.
And I'm okay with that. And that wraps up all of the red cards in Dominaria. Thank you guys for hanging out and listening to us go over every single one. We couldn't do it without you. So for Evan Irwin, Ruben Bressler, and Aaron Campbell, we are Magic Mikes. We're going through every single card, and we're going to start talking about the green cards here shortly.